Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm Hosanna Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, where we are going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to the way that we have seen a very unfortunate incident take place in Mastung, and this is not the first time that this is happening, and it's really tragic and condemnable that this attack has taken place on a very important day today. It is Eid Milad-un-Nabi, peace be upon him, and we wish all our viewers a very happy Eid Milad-un-Nabi, peace be upon him as well. But we are very saddened by this tragic incident in Mastung, given the fact, of course, that this is something that was targeting the people who were part of the processions for Eid Milad-un-Nabi, peace be upon him, and it was an attack that took place near a mosque in which a number of people had gathered for the occasion, as well as, of course, different security personnel and police officers who were also part of the security arrangements. So far, we know that at least 53 people, including a police officer, were martyred in this incident, and a number of others have been injured and shifted to various hospitals. This is, of course, something that has been condemned across all quarters, with different political leaders talking about how the injured need to be taken care of, and that there needs to be strict action against terrorists. We haven't seen anybody take responsibility for the attack as yet, but of course there have been implications as to who has been involved, since previously, of course, we've seen similar attacks. And just a couple of weeks ago, there was an attack that also targeted a JUIF leader, and this was something that, of course, has also brought in the conversation of what sort of aspect exists between JUIF and ISKP and Daesh Khorasan. And this is important, especially also in terms of the way that it is going to be dealt with Pakistan also, of course, dealing with different security issues at large, and different groups, including the TTP, the ISKP and others. And this is important then in terms of what the measures are going to be taken in order to not just be able to respond to such attacks, but also to prevent them. And so we're going to be taking a look at that, particularly with a focus on what is going on in Balochistan province and what sort of matters need to be considered. This is going to be our first segment of the show. Our next one is going to take a look at a very important discussion that is also happening in Moscow, in which a number of regional players are involved. It's called the Moscow format, and this is a group of regional players involved in the reconciliation and the way that the regime in Afghanistan is going to be able to fulfill its commitments, particularly regarding inclusivity, counterterrorism, and other such issues as well. And something that, of course, is in place to put forward this pressure towards Afghanistan, and to make sure that it is able to fulfill its own commitments and is able to then move forward in a way in which the political dynamics in the international arena are there, and the country can proceed towards recognition. And so this is going to be an important discussion as well in the way forward. This time around, we also have the Afghan Taliban regime in attendance. So it's going to be important, since this is a demand that they've been putting forward for quite some time, that they be involved, and they're the ones spoken to regarding matters concerning them. There's also statements coming in from Russia regarding how there needs to be a lot more responsibility on the shoulders of non-regional players and the Western alliance, who is part of the suffering that continues till today, and it is upon them also to act. And they also have pointed towards the displeasure regarding any sort of military presence of non-regional players. So we're going to be taking a look at all of that in our show today and try and understand what sort of impact this is going to have. Of course, Farrukh, Pitafi and Raja Faisal are with me in the studios as always. For our first segment, we've also been joined online by Mr. Jehangir Khattak, who's a senior analyst, and we'll also be joined by Masud Ahmad, security analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the discussion. Jehangir Saab, let me start with you. Given, of course, the current scenario, this is something that of course, Pakistan is dealing with on such a large scale, and there have been numerous occasions on which it has been clarified by both the civil and military leadership that there will be no tolerance and no compensation or leniency towards terrorist groups. Of course, this is something that we have seen in the response that occurs, but in terms of what has happened and in terms of what we've seen happen previously as well, how do we move forward from here to ensure that the way that different areas are being targeted, the people that are being targeted, they understand and they know with confidence that the security forces and the civil leadership of the country will be able to protect them, and there is a way forward for them?
Thank you so much for having me, Sanam. I think Pakistan's challenges are too many right now. The security challenge is not very old, but we have seen an increase in violence by these terrorist groups, the latest being in Mastung. In fact, yesterday, two incidents happened, one in Hangu and the other in Mastung.
Yeah.
And then today, again, there are reports that there was an effort of incursion from Afghan side. I think in Job area, where four soldiers martyred, they embraced martyrdom. So we have all those reports, which are nothing but pure violence. Also, if you look at the data, so different Pakistani sources say that in the last 9 months, Pakistan has lost more soldiers and police officers in the first 9 months of any year in the past 8 years. In all, since the start of this year, Pakistan has lost almost 700 civilians and military personnel and security personnel, rather, which includes police officers as well and levies. Uh, which is a very, very high number. It's really an alarming situation. Pakistan has taken up the issue with the Afghan Taliban in Kabul multiple times. There have been some reports that Taliban have taken some action, but is that enough to stop these attacks? Is the question, because everybody knows, and this is happening on the day when uh, the regional powers gathered in Kazan, Russia, to discuss the situation in Afghanistan. And one of the points of concern and discussion was the threat of terrorists who are on Afghan soil and the pressure on Taliban government to take action against them. So there are too many things. Pakistan has to deal with it diplomatically, like at forums like Moscow, this meeting that happened in Kazan, and also with Afghan officials directly, and with the regional players like Iran and Central Asian states as well as China. All these states have direct stakes in Afghanistan. An unstable Afghanistan is not good for any country in the region. And an Afghanistan which becomes a hotbed for terrorists, again, is a threat for the entire region. So Pakistan has to pursue a very carefully traded policy, a course which should make sure that Taliban understand that how serious Pakistan is in securing its own borders, in securing its own citizens. If you look at what happened in Mastoon, this is the second attack in the past almost 2 weeks. Before that,
Yeah.
Hafiz Hamdullah of JUIF, he survived an attack here. So there are too many things. So one is external factor where Pakistan is taking up this issue diplomatically on different diplomatic forums to press Afghan Taliban to take more serious action, visible action, measurable action, which has some results. And the other is internal. How Pakistani security forces, which are, I told you, which are, they are embracing martyrdom on every day. Uh, is that enough? I don't think so. They should not be losing lives. And in order to stop that, you really need to have a very strong uh, mechanism, and we do have that, which should work, and that is intelligence. Every time there is an attack on Pakistan territory, inside the border, certainly an intelligence failure. Somebody failed to do his job. I think there should be some accountability as well on Pakistan side, where our security forces who are laying down their lives every day to protect. At the same time, they are the people who should not be going in harm's way this way if we have a good intelligence network. We do have intelligence network, and our intelligence agencies certainly are operating in a very difficult environment. I can understand that. But at the same time, this is the test of our intelligence capacity as well. This is the test where they should deliver as well. This is the test where they should forewarn everyone beforehand that this is coming. So I think that Pakistan has to take like this the dual approach. One, outside at the international level. And second, Pakistan has to try to look back and see if there is anything that needs to be done to make its own house in order, if there are any issues in our own intelligence community. So these are big questions. And then lastly, Pakistan needs to I think sit with Taliban and show them a little bit more I would say, no, I would not call it an aggressive behavior, but I would say that Pakistan should draw a line, plain and simple. Pakistan should draw a red line that, okay, we have taken casualties, we cannot take more. This is unacceptable. These units are coming to this side, your side. So why we are securing the border? We built this entire fence around a Pakistan's border.
Right.
And infiltration should be not that easy. But at the same time, it's Taliban's job to secure their borders so that they don't become a source of instability in the region.
Right, absolutely, and I'll talk more about that in detail, Jehangir Saab. But let me also go to Masud Saab with reference to what is going on and what we have discussed. There seems to be, of course, a very clear stance coming in from Pakistan's side, and repeatedly perhaps it has been clarified that there will be no tolerance, and this is the policy moving forward, especially given our attempts with groups such as the TTP that haven't gone in the direction that one would have hoped for. We have decided that there will be no negotiations, and they'll have to lay down their arms and of course abide by the law. But this is something that at the end of the day, when we are expecting Masud Saab to happen within the country, how do we then ensure, given the fact that this is something we've repeated so many times, that it doesn't happen? And how do we bring in the Afghan Taliban regime also to be able to make them and ensure that whatever expectation we have actually does happen? Because so far it seems that it's a one-way street. We are saying what we need, but we aren't really seeing that being reflected. And please also clarify whether or not their support can extend to groups beyond the TTP, whether groups such as the ISKP is something that we will be requiring support from the Afghan Taliban in any way.
Thank you, Sana. First, I would like to make a comment on the Mastung and the Hangu blast. And it was very unfortunate. Basically, the blast took place, the suicide bombing, on the day when the nation was celebrating the birth of Holy Prophet, peace be upon him. And then basically the terrorists, they have no religion as far as they are concerned, and they have no humanity, human values. And Mastung has been a target of terrorists in the past for some time now. If we recall, it was in 13 July 2018 when Siraj Raisani was targeted here in Mastung while he was having an election rally. 150 people, innocent people, they were martyred, including Siraj Raisani. And subsequently, there was a sectarian targets were also carried out, sectarian killing in this area, especially Hazaras traveling to Iran. They were targeted here in Mastung. And secondly, Pakistan Army carried out an operation some years back, probably 3-4 years ago, and they eliminated some of the cells of the Daesh operating from this particular area. So this area has been the target of terrorists in the past. Now, as far as situation is concerned, the concern of Pakistan is that the safe havens from which terrorists they are operating. At present in Afghanistan, there is an Islamic State of Khorasan, there is a TTP, Al-Qaeda in subcontinent, then Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement and Islamic Uzbekistan Movement. They all are operating from Afghanistan's safe havens. But the question, according to the report which was issued on 25th July this year by United Nations monitoring team, they said the actual threat is not from Islamic State. They have the strength of around 6,000. They are basically operating from Afghanistan. Basically, no, they are not only threatening Afghanistan, Afghan Taliban regime, but also threatening Pakistan, the Central Asian states, as well as the Chinese. The attacks carried out in Afghanistan recently, the attack on Pakistan embassy, attack on Russian embassy, and the attack on Chinese staying in a hotel, and then an attack on also on the Gulbuddin Hikmatyar was carried out by the Islamic State. So the actual threat is Islamic State, followed by the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. And TTP is the only organization which has been which benefited from the takeover of Afghan Taliban. So they have free run. 8,000 those who were in prison, they were released by Afghan Taliban. They are free to move around. They are in possession of latest weapons left by the Americans. Weapons worth 7 billion they were left by Americans in Afghanistan. Today, if you go to Kandahar, in the south and east in Panjwai, you will find the weapon market. You can buy a M4 for $400 to an Humvee. So that is the state of affair in Afghanistan. And the recent attacks which were carried out right from, if we start from Chatral, from Kunar and Nuristan, and subsequently if you go Paktika, Paktia, and then south was Zob. All these terrorist attacks, they originated from Afghanistan. So the demand of Pakistan is to get hold of a TTP and eliminate these safe havens from where they are operating. The Chief of Army Staff has been made his statement in couple of statements in the last 2 weeks, and he said the enough is enough. And now we have the options. As Pakistan is already carrying out operation right from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Balochistan. Ruthless operation is in the progress against the terrorists, but is the responsibility of Afghan Taliban. So there is a possibility, and there is an option when some operation can be carried out in close coordination, cooperation with Afghan Taliban to eliminate TTP element. If they are unable to eliminate them or to control them, that is evident now that basically unable to control the TTP in Afghanistan.
All right, Jehangir Sahab, of course, the Moscow format is an important platform as well. And I know you're short on time, and we will be discussing this later on in further detail. But I want your perspective also on that in terms of what is happening at the moment, and in terms of what sort of value addition will there be from this particular platform. It's not the first time they're meeting in. We haven't really seen any steps taken towards an inclusive government by the Afghan Taliban. This time around, they are involved in the discussion as well. Do you think it will be different and will have a different impact?
I'm not sure about the impact, because this conversation has been going on about Afghanistan in terms of having an inclusive government and crack down on terrorist groups. There are almost 20 terrorist groups operating from Afghan soil right now. I do not say it, UN says it. And thirdly, the conversation is going on. And I feel that there are two factors. One is that while no government in the world, including ours, do not formally recognize Taliban government, but every government, whether it's small or big, whether it's in this region or beyond, everyone is trying to make some sort of relationship with Taliban, because Afghanistan is rich in minerals. There is seems to be a sort of a race to get those very, beneficial, to contracts, mining contracts. Taliban just signed $6.5 billion worth of contracts, and nobody wants to lose their influence either. The world also has very few choices when it comes to Afghanistan, because the world has only one partner. There is no other partner on Afghan soil who have some authority on any part of that country with whom the world can engage. So Taliban are the only choice. That's one. Second is that nobody is willing to accept their government formally, because the Taliban so far have resisted the international calls for an inclusive government, for a visible, determined action against terrorist groups and their own ties to the terrorists. If you look at the UN right now, there are 40 Taliban leaders who are on UN blacklist, and 13 have been given exemptions, including their foreign minister, Muttaqi, Amir Khan Muttaqi, who has been given the exemption to travel. Otherwise, nobody else can travel. they are blacklisted. In such a situation, when we have these conversations, so what the world is offering Afghanistan and what Afghanistan can offer the world, these are the big questions. I feel that right now, the world is trying to bring Taliban to the table for a political dialogue to soften their stance on women and girl rights, especially their rights to go to schools and get jobs and be part of the national life, and also take action against terrorist groups. Now, there is a growing evidence that while Taliban are taking some action against Daesh or ISIS, they are pretty good friends with the Taliban who are attacking Pakistan. And that's a big problem for Pakistan. Same is the case with Central Asian states, which have their own concerns. And everyone, every country in the region is concerned about the growing power of Daesh. The attack that happened in Mastung, that also has some, we don't know who has claimed it so far because TTP has denied. And there seems to be a growing evidence, or not evidence, rather footprints, I would say, that it could be very well Daesh, because Daesh has one dangerous thing that has evolved over the past few months is that TTP has made alliances with local terrorist groups who are within Pakistan's territory, like the Baloch separatists. Daesh has done the same thing as well. So that has, I think, complicated the security environment for our own security agencies as well. And that is where every time there's a dialogue outside, and when we are looking for a meaningful impact on us, I don't think we should keep our expectations too high, even though the dialogue must continue, even though the lines of communication must be open. But I think just dialogue will not be enough until
Okay.
and unless the world draw some lines.
All right. Thank you very much, Jehangir Khattak Saab, for joining us and being a part of the debate. Farrukh, when we take a look at the blast in Mastung and, of course, the kind of security challenges that Pakistan has been facing for quite some time now, there is, of course, a plan or a way forward in terms of our national security agenda and what we're going to be doing in terms of course, dealing with these terrorist groups. But I want to also know that when we talk about the kind of responses that are required and how there needs to be an inquiry into this blast, there needs to be action taken and no leniency. When we take a look at these statements, I want to understand what they mean, especially in terms of action on ground, and also in light of what the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has called hyper-securitization, whether or not that is something you think is a phenomenon that may have an impact negatively in the society.
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. First of all, unfortunately, I think Khattak Saab left, but he raised a very interesting question regarding intelligence failure. So I just wanted to actually update the viewers about that. According to my knowledge, whatever I've learned so far, there was a terrorist threat warning that was issued, and that was communicated to the religious leaders in Mastung, and they were also requested to actually not carry out this procession in view of the kind of threats that are there. Mastung has double whammy, right? You can expect terrorist attacks from TTP or similar kind of religiously motivated groups, and you can also expect threats from the Baloch separatists as well. So they disregarded it, but this is the most shocking part of it. I don't want to blame the victims. I think that in any country, the safety of the citizens has to be ensured by the state. But the biggest problem right now is when it comes to such processions, you have to realize where you are living, what time and day it is, and these usually intelligence can tell you who might be the target or where it might happen, but not exactly the GPS coordinates or, for that matter, the individuals who might be targeted. So I think that it was a big miss, and I hope in coming days our religious community also pays heed to the official warnings of this kind. And now I was hearing about whether the responsibility is taken by TTP or whether by Daesh or for that matter any third group. The question is, to me, for all practical purposes, Sana, it is a distinction without a difference. It is a useless distinction because both of them, Daesh or for that matter TTP, more or less constitute similar kind of people. They keep on interchanging positions as well. Their ideology is almost similar. Their patterns are almost similar. Since Afghan Taliban have taken over in India, in Afghanistan, since then we have seen something interesting happening in Pakistan, some kind of interpretation or whitewashing of Taliban's criminal record, where they have been doing similar kind of attacks on religious mosques as well in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. So why would they change now? Why is it that we suddenly think that TTP cannot attack mosques or religious processions and Daesh must be behind it, right? I think at this moment it is important to remember that they are all poisonous fruits of a tree that is rooted in Kabul right now, and that is Afghan Taliban. And when Afghan Taliban were taking over, this is why I kept on raising so much hue and cry, because at that time I was cognizant of the fact that once these things, such groups actually take over, there is no reset button. There is no way to replace them. Last time it took the entire world's coalition to overthrow them, and at that time also, even despite that, they stayed relevant and they kept on attacking. And somehow, when the fall of Kabul took place on the Independence Day of India, at that time, whosoever was the patron saint of Taliban ensured that whatever pockets of resistance that used to exist last time Taliban were in power, like Mazar-e-Sharif, they are also smoked out. So at this moment, there is no group who can actually take on the Afghan Taliban, and you don't have any reset button at all. Finally, regarding the overall choreography of such attacks and what kind of response that has to take place. We keep on talking about hot pursuits, drawing a line in the sand, and the biggest problem is, look at how our reactions to Afghan Taliban, their existence, keep on bringing bad light to us. And I say this because India keeps on using these things to its advantage. Recently, we have seen that India is in the dock for actually violating another sovereign country's international boundaries and killing a Sikh separatist, right? And because of that, there is a lot of pressure on India to actually hold people who are responsible accountable. At that time, suddenly my own folks actually start pushing for similar kind of going into another country and all that. So I just want to understand, have we taken a takeout of whitewashing India every time it actually does something bad, that when it comes Pehlu Khan, we kill Mashal Khan, when it rapes 80-year-old woman in Delhi, motorway rape takes place, similar kind of things keep on happening. When they attack their minorities, suddenly in Pakistan also similar kind of attacks start taking place. Why is it that we have to actually burn ourselves down to make them look better, or at least the same?
Right. Faisal, with regards to what the dynamics have been in Mastung and have been earlier discussed as well, previously, of course, also just a couple of feedbacks, there was also another attack in Mastung in which JYF leader was also injured, and there seems to be some sort of rift between this particular party and a terrorist group in Mastung, and I want to understand whether or not you think this is a specific problem with a certain party, or do you think that this is something as part of the entire system that is being targeted, and it may include any or other party which does not fall into whatever concepts that Daesh, Khorasan or any other terrorist group may have?
Sana, when it comes to a specific party, a political party or religious party, it has nothing to do with that. I would agree with Farrukh to this extent that of course all of these terrorist outfits, there shouldn't be any distinction between them, be it BLA, be it ETIM, be it IMU, be it TTP or ISIS Khorasan. To me, all of them, they are terror factories, and suicide bombers is their product, which they keep on selling to who.
But
this needs to be.
Is there any distinction actually being drawn in terms of the way that we are responding to them, or do you think that perhaps may be the case just because they show up differently in certain ways and that is needed?
They show follow up question as well.
Yeah.
Why is it that every time such terrorist attacks take place, we know the methodology, we keep on waiting for somebody to take responsibility? Is it not the purpose of a terrorist group to confuse you? And if they want to attack, why would they take responsibility every time?
Farrukh, whenever I obviously dig deep into the security aspects of Pakistan, and especially when it comes to terror attacks which take place, of course, from the Afghan soil, what comes in my mind is, of course, all of these outfits, all of these terror outfits, they need to have finances. Who's finances them? Who's facilitating them for staying in 3 of the provinces, Nuristan, Kunnad and Nangarhar in Afghanistan? Of course, they have a stronghold in these 3, and very recently.
Could it be Afghan government?
No, I can't say that. I can't say that.
Why suddenly the blind faith?
Why I can't say that? Because only 3 days ago, Voice of America reported that 200 of the TTPs, while on their return from Chitral to Nuristan, of course, they were captured by the Tehreek-e-Taliban Afghanistan authorities. To me, we should be giving a second chance to them. Why I say this? Because we share a long border with them.
How is that an evidence of them not also being part of any of the financing of the terrorist networks?
Well, they can't finance it because what we're seeing is they are trying to run their own country right now. What I look towards is, in terms of financing, it's India that comes into my mind. Why I say this? Because India kept a presence in Afghanistan for 20 long years. They had an excellent ground footing when it comes to financing all of these terror outfits. We have, of course, given dossiers again and again to the Western world, in which we have proven them that we, of course, have the evidence of Indian involvement in it. And let me,
Indians are on the ground. Okay, where are they hiding? And why are the Afghan Taliban tolerating them?
Let me complete. In modern world, you don't need to have your own setup as Indians living in that country. It is all about contacts, making contacts on the ground. They are the ones who are doing your work. As I said, if me sitting here can buy anything from America, can buy anything from China, me sitting at home, why can't Indians sitting at home can buy all of these products, suicide bombers, and they can give the dates, they can give the times, they can give the places where to do it. And this is what is taking place. I want to draw your attention towards one of the such cases. ISIS Khorasan conducted an activity. Of course, I'm talking about Colombo attack. In that activity, of course, Indian hand was involved.
Yeah, and my concern is that Indians might be able to buy whatever they want, but when you say that they cannot buy Afghan Taliban, that becomes a problem, because then there starts your blind faith.
So Afghan Taliban right now, it's not.
I understand.
It's a regime. It's not a band outfit. If it was a band outfit, American wouldn't have been sitting with that.
I don't know whether you are representing Pakistan or.
No, I'm not.
Let me just take into the conversation Masud Ahmad Khan Saab as well, and of course, Masud Saab, you can add to whatever is being discussed, and also please give your take on whether or not you think that there may be then a need to reflect and reevaluate our own strategy in terms of different terrorist groups within Pakistan as well. And then, of course, the Afghan Taliban as well, because it seems that we have been engaging them in a certain aspect, but so far it hasn't been working out. And in your answer, you can also perhaps take a look at what is happening right now in terms of the Moscow format, and whether that platform may be something that Pakistan can use in its favor.
Thank you. I would like to comment on the role of India in Afghanistan. As Raja Saab explained, right from during the time of Karzai and Ashraf Ghani, those 20 years after 9/11, Indian RA enjoyed the maximum autonomy in Afghanistan. Basically, they were running the show. They had connection with all the governors of 34 provinces. And there were 66 training camps inside Afghanistan, which were used against Pakistan. Chuck Hagel, Secretary of Defense at that time in 2011, he made a statement that India is using Afghanistan as a second front against Pakistan and also financing terrorism inside Pakistan. So that was one. Secondly, as far as Islamic State is concerned, as highlighted, Islamic State Khorasan basically the foreign policy carried basically an article probably in 2020 in which they said the Indians and Central Asians are new face of ISK. So, and there are also references, there are reports that there was an ambassador in Afghanistan of India, Amar Sinha, from 2013 to 2016, and he was notorious for handling Islamic State in Afghanistan. During a raid by Afghan security forces in a Daesh camp, 4 Indian women were arrested. And basically, they were deputy directors of RA. Basically, they were there basically deciding the finances, the funding, and it was later on they were released on the request of ambassador. Similarly, ambassador in Tajikistan, one Madhu Saab, he was also involved in terrorist activities, facilitating terrorism. Then he was in contact with the northern allies, and there are so many. There are links when we talk. As he said, the South Indians, basically from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, they are being used. And as highlighted in Colombo attack, again it was Indians that were involved in the attacks. Secondly, as far as as you said, the Moscow format, I don't think so. This format is going to yield any result because the focus of this format is on the inclusiveness of the other ethnic tribes in the government. But the major issue is the security, the threat emanating from Afghanistan, the terrorist organization operating from Afghanistan. So that is a foremost, and that has to be addressed, and that because then it is, as far as I'm concerned, the regional connectivity to the approach is very important because of the neighboring countries, the Central Asian states, as well as the Russian, Chinese. Of course, they can play an important role. At the same time, the United States has certainly they can play an important role because the Doha Accord was signed with them, and an understanding was developed. And commitment when Afghan Taliban met with Americans, and subsequently the United Nations Security Council resolution was again it was made clear that Afghanistan will not be used for terrorist activities, and subsequently we have seen the trilateral agreement understanding between Pakistan, China, and Afghanistan with the neighboring countries. So everything is not happening. But security is the major threat. As far as I am concerned, the threat is real from TTP and also from Islamic State Khorasan. So we have to take all possible steps to stop them because the Indians, they are using their proxies. They have activated their proxies right from Chatral down Zob. Basically, this is what is happening, and I have seen a tweet in a record affiliated with probably it was RA, a DSP for DSP. That is the statement. True. So they have openly acknowledged that they are involved in this suicide bombing. So we have the evidence. We submitted 5 dossiers to United Nations right from 2009, and last was submitted in 2022. And we have given irrefutable evidences. We also identified 4 persons to be declared as terrorists according to United Nations Security Council Resolution 1267, which says individuals responsible involved in financing terrorism or providing material support. So that action still pending and no action was taken. So the Indian involvement is beyond any doubt is there.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us and being a part of the discussion, Masud Ahmad Khan Saab, and of course sharing your views with us. Farrukh, the Moscow format talks about, of course, the inclusive government and also calls upon the non-regional players to play their own part. I want to then understand whether or not this group of regional players involved towards working towards inclusivity, an inclusive government by the Afghan Taliban can actually ensure any sort of responsibility from the Western alliance.
Right, Sana, I think that the answer is simply no. If we were expecting any miracles we have seen in these past 2 years, that didn't happen. How will that happen now? I don't think so. There's a chance. But I am cautiously optimistic. Regarding something that was said earlier, I will not sit here and be misunderstood. If anybody doesn't know who I am or what I have written on India or what I have said on India, kindly look it up, because I am one of the biggest critics of India's role in Afghanistan. I have been. India is your sworn enemy. If India can pursue one dissident to Canada, you can always think that India is really capable of much more. My problem is that when you start telling me that current government of Afghanistan is not prone to the same pressures that were there on the previous governments, then that becomes a problem. When you actually try to take away the agency of Afghan Taliban and how they might also be playing ball with such elements, then it becomes a problem. When you take away agency from people who kept on cheerleading Afghan Taliban's takeover, at that time we were told that they are going to come and they are going to make everything hunky-dory. When those people now are proven wrong, and these people actually keep on aiding and abetting each other, and somehow it all works for India, then I have the right to ask, who took your tongue? Did that cat actually take your tongue? It is very easy to actually obscure the matters and project as if we are debating India's role. India's role is known. We have done countless programs on that. But Afghan Taliban's role is the question. And as long as you are not going to actually break the idols, one is hiding in one's own, arms, till that time, things cannot improve.
Right, yes, absolutely. That's all we have from the debate. Of course, there's much that remains to be seen as to what comes out from the Moscow format and whether or not Pakistan will be able to get what it expects and what should be happening by the Afghan Taliban regime. And that, of course, is something that we'll be talking about in further detail. Faisal, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just wanted to add that all I expect from, of course, Russian side, all of the security setups of all of the involved countries, they are there, and of course all are bothered about the terrorists being in Afghanistan right now. So what I believe, the only thing possible which I should be expecting from this is that an operation cleanup, it should be required from the Afghan Taliban. Kabul must do it, and this is the only solution to all of the problems which are faced by the region.
All right, that's all that we have from the show. We'll now see you on Monday. Have a nice weekend.